It's Brian Preston, the money guy.
So let's talk about 30-year-olds.
Okay.
Bo, I mean, I know we titled this Breakthrough.
Yeah.
There's so many visuals that come to mind, but this is also the messy 30s. Because you're in this period right now.
This is, you and I have so affectionately, this is the messy middle. I feel like, I don't want to say it's the hardest decade because every decade is hard, but there's just a lot going on in your 30s between social engagements and financial engagements and family, and you have all kinds of stuff pulling on you. It's hard to just stop and breathe in your 30s, I feel like.
And that chaos is caused by, you got a lot of stuff going on in your career. You got kids. You probably, let's put this in the right. You got a career, you got married, you got kids. I mean, you're probably adding on some big debts, some big life decisions. You buy the farm, essentially. You buy a house. So there's a lot of things that make that messy 30-year-old range. So I want you to know, and because we've gotten some great feedback, everybody feels like they're in chaos in their 30s. Don't panic just because you feel that way. But here's the other part I want you to know. When you're in your 30s, you're starting to wake up and realize, I kind of know how the world works a little bit better. In my 20s, I was kind of bright-eyed, bushy-tailed, and I was just now starting to figure out what to do with this freedom and starting the career path. But now that you're in your 30s, you're kind of a little wiser. You're a little street smart. So let's make sure we maximize this, because what I love is not only do you have a little more knowledge, you still have enough time.
That's right.
Time is still on your side that you can get easy growth. Let your money do the heavy lifting for you. Just make the right decisions.
So let's look at the profile of what the average 30-year-old looks like right now. So on average, a person in their 30s right now in this country makes about $45,000. Their savings rate is 7.75%. We have some issue with that. We'll talk about that in a second. The median net worth for someone in their 30s is $35,181. But in their 30s, through their 20s and into their 30s, they've now accumulated $66,000 of total debt.
So debt essentially doubled, because for the 20s it was $33,000, now it's $66,000. Don't see a lot of change in that savings rate. So people are still enjoying life. They're not really worried about the future.
Not recognizing how powerful
You're going to notice a trend here as you get older. It's kind of Americans are procrastinators. Is what I'm realizing. But let's talk about what area should you focus. What part of net worth statement should you focus? And this is going to be a surprising answer. Instead of talking about assets, liabilities like I did in the 20s, I'm going to tell you should focus in your 30s on the footnotes.
Well, wait. So, Brian, I know that the formula for net worth is assets minus liabilities equals net worth. Footnotes wasn't in that equation anywhere.
So that's why we need to talk about it, because there are some big life concepts that need to be conquered in your 30s. The first one, think about risk management, because I told you about all these things. You got the career, you've got now probably a marriage, you've got a family that you're considering starting, you've also got these new things that you're taking mortgages out, some assets you've purchased. All these things have added complexity to your life that you need to protect yourself and your loved ones. That if you fell off the planet tomorrow, it's not going to create even more chaos than what's going on in the messy middle that you're in.
Yeah, we get the question all the time, specifically as it relates to net worth. Hey, so I have this life insurance policy. Where does that go? Or how do I put this? The footnotes is where that goes. If you have things that don't fall into the asset category, they don't fall into the liability category, you want to have a separate page on your net worth statement called footnotes, and that is where you'd have all of your life insurance listed, all of your disability insurance listed. Another big thing we talk about in your 30s, that's where you want to have the wills and the estate documents in place.
If you have children, you've got to have a will, guys. That's one of the first questions we ask when you call us, because we want to make sure if you think it's hard to have that discussion with your significant other on who's going to raise Junior, or your daughter, it's going to be even harder when you can't speak for yourself. So make sure you have the will. Also, the healthcare directives are super powerful. If you can't speak for yourself, these are going to be the documents that get you out of the ditch. So pay attention to that stuff. So let's focus, after the footnotes and the risk management and the wills, let's talk about liabilities, because this is still, there's a lot of distractions on things that debt can be a tool. I'm not saying it's all good debt. I'm saying that debt can actually be the thing that really sidelines you, because you'll feel like you're working to the master. I mean, there's so many fire people, and we've done episodes on that talk about jobs are just because you're a slave. I think they feel that way because of what liabilities and lifestyle choices they've made. So what are we talking about when we talk about liabilities in your 30s?
And we're not making this up, guys. I don't know if you saw this, but you already alluded to this. the debt doubled from
Yeah.
the 20s to the 30s. So this is something that's actually happening for the average American. So we think if you can follow some nice rules of thumb, it will keep you between the lines. On your mortgage, you want to make sure that your housing service, what you're paying on your mortgage, and what you're paying on your housing cost does not exceed 25% of your income. If you can stay below that threshold, you are in a healthy place. And then for a car, we've already said this, we say it all the time, you want to be at 23.8, 20% down. Don't finance for more than 3 years, 8% of your total monthly income.
And here's the thing. When I saw that debt was now at $66,000, I know that the average car debt is about $37,000 in the United States. And as Daniel shared with me, I think like $4,000 to $5,000 of that is actually negative equity that gets rolled in.
Yeah.
So you guys, you can see that maybe people don't have mortgages. Everybody doesn't, but a lot of people are definitely doing car loans. Be smart with this stuff, guys. So be careful with the liabilities.
And tell me if you agree with this. I feel like in your 20s, it's really easy to accumulate your base layer of debt.
Yeah.
I feel like in your 30s, it's really easy to accumulate the big debts.
Yeah.
The big debts that are going to take you decades to get paid off.
So pay attention to that lifestyle creep. That's what Bo's alluding to. Let's talk about assets. This ties in, once again, order of operations wise. We think at this point, cash reserves. Instead of just saying you ought to have a few thousand up to deductibles like you do for 20-year-olds, we think you ought to be at a comfortable 3 to 6 months of cash reserves in your 30s. Investments. Look, I was soft on the 20-year-olds because I realized when you're in your 20s, you are broke as a joke. So it's okay that it's aspirational to get to 20 to 25% of your income as a savings rate. By the time you're in your 30s, guys, you need some tough love. You need to be saving 20 to 25%. This is the last stop on the train of compounding interest where it is super easy money. So make sure you're maximizing because this thing is pulling out of the station. You need to take advantage of it. And then investments. Though I've hit those. Talk to them, Bo, about what we do with how you do the investment part.
Yeah. So one thing we think is interesting, and we just see this out there amongst our Money Guy family, in your 30s, if you've really been diligent through your 20s and you've been diligent in your 30s, you might be hitting that threshold where maybe your assets are getting into the six-figure $200,000, $300,000, $400,000, $500,000 range. Once you get there, you may need to graduate the way you're investing. Up to that point, we love target retirement funds and using sort of automated solutions. But as your portfolio grows, there are things you can take advantage of, like asset allocation, spreading your assets across different investments, tax diversification, asset location, so that not only are you building up your pre-tax, but you're also building up your tax-free and your after-tax assets. And then you can do things like annual loss harvesting, capital gain avoidance. As your portfolio matures, as you mature, so too should your strategy mature.
Great points, Bo. So I want to talk about, now that you have those understandings, how does the army of dollar bills? So, I talked about for 20-year-olds, it's the 88 times over concept where $1 can turn to 88. How does this work for a 30-year-old? Because it's a difference of a decade now. What has changed?
So now, again, same exact illustration. We said that you need to save $95 a month if you start saving at 20. If you wait till 30, then you actually need to start saving $270 a month to get to $1 million by the time you get to 65.
Wait a minute. That almost tripled.
It almost That's how powerful that early decade is.
So you can imagine, look, we're not going to show you the number for 40, 50, and 60 yet. You'll have to go tune to those segments. But it is one of those things, if it tripled from 20 to 30, what do you think is going to happen in your 40s and 50s? Guys, do not blow this opportunity. Start saving, start investing as soon as you possibly can. It's time in the market that is so valuable.
So if you save $270 a month starting at 30, and you save that all the way until the time you turn 65, you will have put in $113,400. But remember, your account is worth $1 million now. That means that $887,000 of your million is all your army of dollar bills working for you.
Now that makes me feel better, because looking at that and knowing, now look, 20-year-olds, they have it easy. 95% of their growth is going to come from the market working for them. That's compounding growth. But I'm not feeling sorry for 30-year-olds either, because 89% of your growth is not your actual behavior of saving. It's actually your money working for you. So this shows the power, guys. Take advantage. I know I sound like a broken record, but it is one of those things I think repetition is hopefully going to lead to action and create the habit of you actually building some wealth in that army of dollar bills. It is so, so powerful.
Love it.
So let's pivot now to the wealth spot check.
Yep.
Where should people be in their 30s?
So again, we're going to lay this out the exact same way that we did for the 20s. So if you look at the average American from age 30 to 39, the median net worth right now for someone at 30 years old is about $18,000. But by the time they leave this decade, their net worth is about $55,000.
That's average, though. Now realize this is not aspirational. This is just what the typical Americans do.
Exactly right.
This is not where you want to be. You want to be doing much better than this.
So if you are someone in your 30s, we think you should calculate where your net worth should be. And the formula we've already said is you want to take your age times your income divided by 10 plus the number of years that you have until you turn 40. So if you're a 30-year-old, it would be 10 plus 10, you divide by 20. So if you want to be an average accumulator of wealth and you have the average income in this country, at age 30, you'd have a net worth of about $62,000, and by the end of the decade, your net worth should be around $175,000. But if you want to be a prodigious accumulator of wealth, which is what we think you should all strive to be, your range in your 30s should be somewhere around $124,000 to about $350,000 at the end of the decade.
I think these numbers are much more reasonable than the 20-year-olds because, like I said, you have enough time in the workforce that you can actually start making the money work for you. I do think just because there's another spot check that we can talk about is Fidelity publishes some research on how much people are saving. They have in their studies that by the time you're 30 years of age, you should have 1 time your salary.
Yeah, that doesn't for an average.
That's more like an average accumulator of wealth.
Right.
I don't think that's what I would consider aspirational. I want people really the biggest thing. Here's the tough love once again. By the time you're in your 30s, you need to be saving 20 to 25% of your income. Focus on what you make and how much you can keep, and that's really what's going to lead you to success in the long term.